All right, my friends, we are here with the guys from Polk Audio. They just dropped a whole new line of speakers called the Reserve Series. We already have an article up on the audioholics.com homepage. So I hope you guys read ahead because you'll have all the information on this really cool new series of speakers. But we wanted to bring you guys more details. I wanted to bring in the engineers behind these speakers. That way we could go full detail on what's going on, how the series is different or how it's similar to the Legend series. And then at the end of this whole presentation, you guys could ask questions directly to the guys that design these products. How cool is that? We're here with Paul Wilkie, Mike Greco, Phil Jones, and Scott Orth. I hope I said your last name right.
That's right.
All right, awesome. So what is it? What's all the fuss about the Reserve series? Can you guys give me in a nutshell, one sentence, why this is such a cool series of product?
So we'll let Michael handle that. So Michael, why is this such a cool series of product?
So there's a little bit of a delay.
Yeah.
In one sentence.
Otherwise, we're here.
Just listen to me, Mike.
I don't know if I could do that, Gene. That's kind of challenging.
God,
So
put you on the
let's just
spot.
Start
I'm
out
sorry.
by saying, let's just start. You're very familiar with Legend. You're very familiar with Legend, and you obviously, I think you've reviewed Signature. So what we're looking at doing with Reserve, is slot that right in between Signature and Legend. And one of the things that we did with Legend was we developed brand new technology in terms of the tweeter, the cone, enhanced power port. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to build a line around that. We wanted to start out with those ingredients. And we wanted that to be the basis for what we started doing. But in addition to that, our engineering team had been working on some new technology that wasn't in any line. So we wanted to make sure we take that as well and incorporate that into the new series. So in essence, Reserve is a full line of speakers. There's 3 floor standers, 2 books, 3 centers, and a height module. So it can support your 2-channel environment and your big multi-channel home theaters and everything in between. And we wanted it to be built off the premium technology of Legend. And we wanted it to kind of come in from a price standpoint in between Signature and Legend series. And we accomplished that, and we're very excited to present that to you today.
So would you guys say that this is a replacement to the RTIA series prior to this?
So he's asking, is this a replacement to the RTA? Who wants to take that? I don't think it's not.
I'll take it. I mean, no, I hear you. So with RTA was shipped originally in 2008. It was a very good line. It was done, or it was very good. But it's kind of run its course. I think there's a fundamental difference between Reserve and RTIA, and the fundamental difference was at that time, LSIM was the flagship. And if you think about it, we didn't trickle anything down. We didn't take really anything outside of power port from LSIM into RTIA. The tweeters were different. The drivers were different. It was just fundamentally a different line. I think that what makes Reserve so special is we wanted to take the transducers, and Scott's going to talk to this, with tweeter, the Pinnacle tweeter, the Turbine Cone, the enhanced power port, and we wanted to take those pieces and not cheapen them, but we wanted to take them as they were and start with that as the basis. And so I think that's fundamentally what the difference is between, say, RTI to LSIM and Reserve to Legend. And so I don't really want to say it's replacement because that has a whole bunch of connotations in terms of performance and features and price. This is really a ground-up development that was built around using the premium components that were in Legend.
Okay.
Gotcha. All right. So, Paul, you put together a slide presentation. I think we should probably go over that for now, and then we could, ask some questions to Scott when it comes up.
Sure.
So I'm going to share your screen here. All right. Here we go.
Yeah. So we already met the team. Yeah, Phil, go ahead and narrate here, I think.
Okay. So like I said, joining us here is Michael and Scott and myself. So I'm the guy that gets to run around and talk about all of the cool things that make up the product. So I get to play around with the gear. It's Mike and Scott that really take the time to put these products together. So we want to talk a little bit about the models. So let's move on. So Michael, why don't you talk about Polk Audio? Give them a little bit of history of Polk Audio. I'm assuming that these Audioholics fans know what Polk Audio is.
Most of them know, but
but just give them like a little snapshot.
All right. So as the token marketing guy, I will give you the just to level set everybody. So Polk, for everybody knows, was established in 1972. It's actually named after one of the three founders, Matthew Polk. And one of the things to remember about Matthew Polk was never the CEO. Matthew Polk was always the mad scientist behind the loudspeakers. And his vision for loudspeakers was he wanted incredible detail that you found in British loudspeakers at the time, but he also wanted that effortless bass, that front row concert experience. And he wanted to build loudspeakers that not only had those attributes, but he also wanted to make them really accessible to a lot of people. His speakers were never the cheapest, but what he wanted to do was make it so that they were affordable. And so that was his big vision. And if you look at the 50 years of Polk, whether you're talking about sound bars or loudspeakers, everything he's done has been true to that form. Give you amazing detail, huge sound stage, effortless bass, and putting you kind of in that front row of the concert. And that vision has been passed along, and you on Audioholics have featured folks that have been sharing that vision and talking about that vision. You've had Stu on the show, and you've had Scott now on the show, and Scott is now carrying that torch in terms of representing what is the Polk sound and ensuring that Polk loudspeakers continue to live up to that vision.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about, Mike, is the reserve. So talk a little bit about why bring in the reserve to go along with Legend. So we have Legend. We make this great speaker. Right. Why do we have this series?
Right. So as I mentioned before, we have these amazing ingredients in Legend. The Pinnacle tweeter, the Turbine Cone. The Pinnacle tweeter is a ring radiator tweeter. Polk has been using ring radiator tweeters for Scott can probably the exact date, but 20 years. We've been using the technology in the cone and keep refining it and building on it for, I think this is the third generation of that cone itself. PowerPort was introduced on an SDA speaker in 1997. And so we've continued to evolve that technology as well. And so we have these core ingredients. And what we wanted to do is, as I said, we wanted to build a full line. If you look at Legend, Legend doesn't actually have a full line. It has only 2 floor standers, 2 books, and a center. When we started thinking about Reserve, we wanted to make sure that not only was this line built on these core ingredients, but we also wanted to make sure that it would work for 2-channel as well as home theater. And so that's why the line is so large. And I'm going to kind of walk through a little bit of the speakers, I assume, at some point in terms of why we did what we did with each one. And it's to accommodate very specific use cases in the home theater space in particular.
So Michael, can I ask you a quick question about the drivers? You talked.
Okay, so why don't you ask me? I asked Mike because Mike's on such a delay.
This reminds me of it's like an SNL skit or something.
it's like we're playing a game of telephone here, but
it is telephone. So all right, so 2 questions I have for you on the ring radiator tweeter. You talk about using it for 20 years.
Yeah, it's a bad SNL skit though.
It is. Is this a Polk design, or do you guys have VIFA design a tweeter for you? Because VIFA, as you know, uses the ring radiator. Is it on their assembly line, or is this totally 100% yours, or do you have VIFA make it for you per your spec?
Actually,
we started with a VIFA made driver back with LSI. That was when the ring radiator first came in. But every series after that was one that we designed ourselves, including this one.
Gotcha. Okay. And on the turbine driver that you're carrying over from Legend over to Reserve, is it pretty much the identical driver, or is it more of a cost-reduced version for this new series?
If I can answer the question.
Go ahead. Well, did you get Scott? Do you want to answer the one about the turbine, young man? Or do I just need to you take that out of your ear and listen to me?
So one of the things I think is important for everybody to understand, because we get this question all the time, is okay. So let me just talk about this in general. So we get this question all the time about Polk speakers, and so just to clarify, so the entire engineering team for Polk loudspeakers are in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. We have an electronics engineering team that's actually in Carlsbad, California. All of Polk products are engineered by the folks either in Baltimore or in Carlsbad. All of the aesthetic, the design, the idea of it is done in Carlsbad. We do all this from the ground up. And in Baltimore, I think, Gene, I think you've been there actually. You know that we can prototype everything. We can make our own cabinets. We can prototype our transducers. Obviously, Scott does all the crossovers by hand. We have the equipment to measure everything. And then obviously we have the facilities to listen to everything. So I think it's really important that people realize that. And so when we talk about generational technologies, we actually have, the team in Baltimore, a lot of these guys have been there 15, 20 years. They have worked on this technology and they've evolved it over time. And it's all done by these engineers. It's not done, we don't go and use off the shelf anything pretty much. We design it all ourselves and we engineer it ourselves and we tune it ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Now one thing that like you know me, I'm an analogy guy. And we were talking about, like, people were saying, okay, this Pinnacle tweeter and the Ring Radiator are the same components that are in a Legend. But a lot of the other things that make a Legend special, the cabinetry, the crossovers, the SDA is available on that speaker. There's other things. So think of it like a Porsche. Legend would be like the 911, the pinnacle of what the team could do. But not everybody everybody desires a 911, but a lot of times that may be out of their range. So Porsche makes the Boxer and the Cayman. It has all of a lot of the characteristics you would see in a 911. The Boxer engine, the opposed engine, the motor in the back, everything that kind of makes a Porsche. But by doing a little bit of some adjustments and costs, I can now bring that Porsche experience to another level of customer. And that's the best way to think of the products that Mike is talking about here. Legend is the pinnacle of the best, everything that they can do. And then what they did is they looked at ways to give you a lot of that performance, but at a little bit of a better range for more people. Would that be the best way to explain it, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Legend, we spent a lot of money on the cabinets, and we spent a lot of money. There's a lot of complexity there. There's a lot of money on the power port. There's a lot of money spent there. When you look at Reserve, and we'll look at it closely, what we wanted to do is have a modern, elegant, very clean design. But this is all vinyl, right? It's not wood veneer. And so what we did was we made compromises, because making speakers is all about compromise, but we did it in a way where we focused. We didn't want to sacrifice performance. So we wanted so the Porsche analogy is very analogous, because obviously the Boxster is a high performance car. But at the same time, they had to make some compromises to make it more accessible to all. I don't really want to fixate though too much on the price, because I think what's amazing about these, and we've already started to see this with initial reviews and feedback, is their performance. Is at the end of the day, the imaging, the soundstage, the bass response, all of these things are absolutely phenomenal, and you're getting a great value, full stop. But it is not just a value story. This is also a performance story, very much so.
Okay,
gotcha.
So like I said, so Michael, why don't you go through the lineup of the floor standards first, and then we will continue on with the other models.
So that outrigger system.
So what I'm going to do is, we have three floor standard models. I'm going to go big to small.
Sorry, there's a delay again.
And
he was asking about the outrigger, the feet. The feet come assembled. You just have to put the spikes on it. But the feet.
So
the outrigger
actually, the outrigger feet are fully assembled. That is 100% correct. They are made out of aluminum, so they're metal, and you'll notice that there are rubber feet on the bottom. you pop off those rubber caps, the spikes are actually underneath. So you actually don't have to assemble anything. It's already pre-assembled.
I got one right here.
If you could look down the top of it, you would actually see there's an Allen key slot, so you can actually adjust the height of those.
So Scott, Scott
really
is Mr. Wizard. He's got the parts sitting there, which makes life a lot easier.
Yeah.
Very neat.
This is part of the port, but this is the base. I forget. I think this is from the 700, but it's a chunk of aluminum.
Okay.
And
So so there's still some high quality components.
So you can
and
see
materials.
that.
Okay. So go ahead there, Michael. He's still listening. Trust me.
Okay, so so anyway, so on the base, there's like a 4-second delay. I apologize, folks, because I'm listening on a Bluetooth headset.
You can tell this is live.
So what I'm showing you is what's interesting about the bass though is we actually did a lot of work on the bass, right? I mean, it's not just to hold up the speaker. When you actually look at the speaker, when you actually look at the bass, you can see the power port is integrated into it as well. And we're going to actually talk about some new technology that we bring to bear in all the ported speakers called export. So the bass has integrated spikes, has rubber feet, and power port all integrated into one, and you can see it on all the floor standers. This is the R700. So the R700 retails for $1,000 each, $2,000 a pair, and you can see it has the ring radiator tweeter from Legend. You can see it has the turbine cone and 2 8-inch woofers. Now, what makes the ring radiator special is we have this waveguide. It has very wide dispersion. It's very flat across the frequency response. So, and it has wonderful high-end imaging. With the mid-range cone, it blends wonderfully. This is our turbine cone. This is a foamed or aerated polypropylene cone. And this is the exact same cone that's in Legend. And one of the reason we like this cone so much is that it's highly damped because you have this composite of polypropylene, foam polypropylene. It's very lightweight and it's very stiff. And what we did in the Legend series was we added these molded ridges, this asymmetrical pattern here. And by adding those molded ridges, it increases the stiffness without adding any mass. And so that gives you a really nice, it's a nice improvement on this cone. And then our 8-inch woofers. And then this is obviously, because you saw the power port with the bass that Scott was holding up, it's obviously a down-firing port system. This product also features our new export technology, and I'm going to hold off describing that in more detail. I'm probably going to hand that off to Scott. Then this is the R600. This retails for $799 each, or $1,600 a pair. I'm showing you the models in black and white. The large one's only available in black and brown. Wood grain. This R600 is available in the matte black, the matte white, and a wood grain. And I'll show you a wood grain as we move down the line. This one we have 2 6.5-inch mid-bass drivers, as well as the Pinnacle tweeter. And again, it also has the aluminum base with the integrated power port and export design. This one is the R500. And on top of the R500, let me take this off, we actually have a height module. So you'll notice that here we have a pair of 5 1/4. It's a very slim, sexy design, in my opinion. And one of the things that we wanted to do, you'll notice the front baffle, it comes in almost to the trim rings on all of these mid-bass drivers, right? We wanted to get it as narrow as possible. So they're a little bit deeper than you might find in a traditional Polk speaker. But we did this because one of the things we were trying to do is we wanted to make sure that this was, how do I put this delicately, spousal approved. Right, so we wanted to make sure that we wanted it to fit with a variety of decor, so it needed to be modern, but we didn't want it to be polarizing. But we also wanted to have that kind of that slim form factor because we felt that would be a little bit less, a little bit more appealing, maybe for putting into the house. So I will talk about this, but this height module is really interesting because we designed this height module to not only fit on top of the speakers, but we also designed it so that it is wall mountable. And so you'll notice there is a 1/4 20 threaded insert as well as keyhole slots. And then there's a slider switch that allows you to say whether this is going to be sitting on top of a speaker or mounted on a wall. So it's very, very versatile.
So I have a question for Scott on the module.
All the grills that I took off are all magnetic.
Okay, so hold on a second. So there's a question for Scott. So what's the question, Scott?
Okay, Scott, on this height module that you guys have, I think we were talking before, this is really designed to be a height module more than a reflective bouncy house one, right? I mean, you designed this to be wall mounted, and then secondary application would be to put a module on top of a speaker if you can't put it on a wall or on the ceiling. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the most part, we got that switch in there to kind of help make that transition,
but you don't have the 8-element Atmos crossover that actually kind of mucks up the frequency response to help Dayclaim enhance the Atmos effect. You don't have that crossover in it, right?
The Dolby requirement is not a crossover per se. It's a shape. It's a frequency response shape. And it just so happens that you need a lot of parts to make that work. So there's no actual requirement to have any parts in your crossover. If you can do it with a driver and really clever engineering, you're welcome to it. But in reality, it's really very difficult to meet their target without a bunch of parts.
Yeah, totally. So what does that switch do? Is it just compensate for boundary gain?
It's mostly treble control, because when if you're on a wall, right, you've got that entire plane there reinforcing the low end. Right. And you put it on top of a speaker and that's gone, right? So it's the difference between 2 pi and 4 pi space, and you need to do something to try to rebalance the system.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay, so let's have Michael go on and let's talk. So you already talked about the price on the height. How much is the height again, Michael?
It's height is $4.99 a pair, I believe.
Okay, $4.99. So now let's talk about let's move on to let's do the center channels next, and then we can talk about the bookshelves because you have them available to you.
Okay. So we have 3 center channels. I'm going to start with the little guy first, and this is the first time you can see the wood grain finish. And so it's a walnut finish. Again, all of the finishes here are vinyl, but this is a really beautiful, rich finish. When you get to see it in person or you see it on the floor standers, it really is. It's really a wonderful walnut finish. We designed 3 centers for 3 different use cases, and that's what I want to speak to. Is the first one is this is a compact center that is designed to fit in most AV cabinets. Most AV cabinets have that little shelf that's tucked away, and we wanted to make sure that we had something that dimensionally fit. The second thing is that this is actually a sealed center. It's not ported. And so again, you don't have to worry about chuffing. You don't have to worry about those type of things. It's got the ring radiator tweeter. It's timbre matched with your other speakers. It's running the same 5 1/4 inch drivers as you find on your towers or on the books. And so this is a really nice centerpiece that we have. The second thing we wanted to do is we know that that's great if you have a console, but what about if you have a TV and you have nothing underneath it? What are you going to do? Well, we wanted to give you an option in case you didn't want to use a center channel stand. So what we did was we developed this center, and this center is more of an LCR. You can use it as a left, center, or right. But the big thing about this one is that it's again sealed, but it comes with wall mounting brackets. These are metal 4-way wall mounting brackets, and this allows you to mount it horizontally or vertically. And so this is perfect for those situations where perhaps you just have a 6-inch deep mantle. This is 6 inches. Or perhaps you don't have anything at all and you want to wall mount it. This gives you that option. So you don't have to sacrifice not having a center channel. You can use this product. So this is the R300. This is the R350. Now, if you want maximum performance, you're like, space is not an option. We are going to go for it all. Then what we have is we have the R400. The R400 features 2 6.5-inch as well as the Pinnacle tweeter. And this is kind of the big daddy. And this is if you want that ultimate home theater experience. You have the space, you have the stand. This is what you want to get. And this is going to just, this with a pair of R700s is going to blow your mind. One more thing on this product, I always get this question, is if I mount it vertically, what do I do about the logo, right? Well, we actually, first of all these grills are magnetic, as I said, but so is this logo. So this logo actually comes off, and you can reorient it so that it's proper. So if you wanted to mount the speaker like this on the side of your TV, you could absolutely do that as well.
Sweet. So I have a question for Scott on the center channels before we move on.
So Scott, there's a question for Scott. So what's up, Scott?
So on all those center channels, are they two-way designs except for the one with the 4 woofers? Is that a 2.5 way? Or
You got it.
Okay. We want to explain what that means when it's a 2.5 way so people understand.
Yeah, we call it cascaded design because it basically means the mid basses are going all the way down into the bass, but the 2 outer ones are low passed at a lower frequency, so they don't interfere in the mid range as much. So you don't get as much bad lobing effects from it.
Yeah, it basically minimizes acoustical interference between the drivers playing the same bandwidth.
Man, you're good.
All right, that's what they pay me the big bucks for, right?
He is an audioholic. Okay, so let's move on, Mike, to the bookshelves. Okay. All right.
Okay. So we have 2 bookshelves. The bookshelves, we'll take the grills off. So this is the R100. And you can see it, it's in the walnut finish. This is the R200. This is the R200 turned around. And the reason we turned it around was because we want to show off our new export, and this is a really easy way to see it. So the R100 has a 5 1/4 inch with the ring radiator tweeter. These products are ported. So the only products that are actually sealed is a wall mountable center and the compact center. And then we have the R200, which features a 6.5 and then the ring radiator as well. One of the things that we want to talk about, I'm going to hand this off to Scott, is that in all the ported speakers, we have this new technology that's patent pending called export. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to Scott.
Yeah. So Scott, would you like to talk about the port and the whole port technologies you guys have developed?
Sure. So we've got the export, which is in the books in the center, and we've got what we're calling, I guess, enhanced or power port 2.0 or whatever for the towers. Actually, the R500 actually has the export as well. And the difference just being that the power port 2.0 has the power port worked into it and the export does not. And the big innovation with these guys is this thing we call the Eigentone Filter, or ETF for short. And basically what that is it's a couple of resonators that sit inside the port and actually suck up the pipe organ resonances that you would tend to get from the port of or the tube of the port. And so what that does in the long run is cleans up the mid-range because you don't have those resonances there anymore. And something we also learned was that it actually cuts down on port noise, which wasn't expected originally. I actually thought there'd be more noise because you're putting something in the middle of the port, but turned out that if there's any chuffing going on, it's actually quieter because you've absorbed those resonances that were making it loud to begin with.
So in this, how come you do a port like this in a speaker but not in a subwoofer? What's the difference between tuning a cabinet for a speaker versus a subwoofer itself?
So you really don't need the ETF in a subwoofer port because the resonances that are going to be generated in the port are out of band. Mm-hmm. You know, you're typically talking, there's a good graph right there. That's at what, 800 hertz for that port. And, even a shorter port, you might get a little higher, but even a real long port's probably still going to be well out of band for a subwoofer. So you really don't need it so much. And besides, the subwoofer's got a big low pass filter on it, which is going to stop it from even exciting in that type of resonance. So the power port certainly comes into play, but the ETFs aren't really needed for a subwoofer.
Okay.
Okay. So we were talking about the bookshelves, and I love this picture because you can actually see the 3 different finishes really closely, and I actually that walnut is actually very pretty on as a bookshelf as well as the floor standard. Any other points that we want to talk about on the particular products that we have in front of us, Mike? Do you want to talk about? Should we talk about the cabinetry a little bit, or?
I actually haven't. I have an ETF here in pieces.
Oh, actually, see that. Hold on a second. Scott actually has the ETF. He likes his fancy technical terms.
Yeah. So let's start here. Let's see if you guys can see this. right? That's what you're seeing on the back of it, right? That's the exit part of the port. And then we put a port tube on one of the ETFs is just basically just a tube that's tuned to the right frequency and has the right amount of damping in it. And then there's an opening in the center, right? And that's where the two ETFs have their exit. And then the port tube goes around that guy. And then here's the other ETF, and that goes into the internal flare, which is this guy here. So, there's a fair amount of pieces that go into this guy, but the end result is a port.
Wow, that's pretty elaborate. You don't get to see that, just looking at the speaker from the surface. That's cool to have that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that you can't see it because I'm sure people would think it was cool, but
Yeah, I think Paul has that cutaway.
Translucent.
So Paul, do you have that cutaway? Can you show the cutaway of the cabinet? I think that's kind of a cool one too.
There we go.
So you can actually see the enhanced power port as well as the export in that as one of those new key reserve technologies. So it is kind of amazing to see it, and you can see how far.
I got one of those here too.
Oh, you do? Of course you do.
All right, let me show you that. Damn, that's so cool.
Yeah, so it doesn't want to stay together. It needs to be glued, but yeah, it's the same idea. But you see how the power port's incorporated into the tower unit.
So I have a manufacturing question for you on this. From a logistics standpoint, when you're shipping these products, I guess how rigid do you have to make this whole system so it doesn't break in shipping? It seems like there's a lot of parts involved in this. Is this really glued down securely?
Well, they're light. It's not like they're real massive and getting jostled, and they're glued together. So yeah, shouldn't be too much of a problem. And you remember, there's parts that are fixed to the cabinet that I don't have a cabinet.
Right.
So
it's part of the bracing.
Yeah, it's not going to fall apart in your hands like that.
I hope not.
Okay. So the other thing we want to talk about, since we have the cabinet cut in half, is there were some things you did with the cabinet as well. So while this is a new cabinet, there's some new designs that are done with the cabinet. So Scott, you might as well talk about the cabinet too, since you're on a roll.
Should go to the CRC slide.
Exactly. So there we go. Column resonance control.
Yeah. So in addition to all the bracing that we worked on, we added a new feature we call CRC, which is a column resonance control. Basically, what that does is it is tuned at the same frequency that the primary mode of the cabinet is, the top to bottom mode. That's usually a real problem in tower loudspeakers especially, and usually it shows up somewhere between 150 and 300 hertz. And basically what we do is that tube is the same idea as the ETF. It's a resonator, and it actually, you put it at the right place and it sucks up that energy. And so it doesn't escape through the port and the drivers. And you can see the graph there. Basically, we got a fair amount of output reduction. I don't know where this 6 dB comes from. That's more like 14 dB. But wow. You got to fire the marketing guy. I worked hard on that graph, and
Paul can't count.
But seriously, it's really nifty. It's like you get, it's almost for free, right? You put an extra brace in there, and you just make it the right length, right? And you damp it appropriately, and it by magic takes care of this long-standing problem with tower loudspeakers.
Yeah. And what I like about all this stuff, Scott, is it just shows that you guys are always working on coming up with ways to make the speaker better. It's never good enough. You're always looking for a way to improve the speaker, regardless of the model and the lineup. You're always looking at a better way of doing something. And every time I see you guys come up with a new technology or a new solution that makes it even better, it just shows that dedication.
So Scott, question for you. By doing this whole methodology here.
This is one of the things you don't see. Right.
Yeah.
You can't see this stuff. And so this is the hard part about, selling loudspeakers.
Yeah, exactly. So what were you going to ask, Scott? Gene?
Oh, it's okay. It's a delay. So by doing all this methodology and the resonance control, does it allow you to use thinner baffles on the cabinet walls and maybe even on the front baffle? Has this whole system kind of revolutionized how you're building the cabinet to maybe make it, cost reduced and lighter than it would have been without this technology?
Not really. Basically, what it does is using laser vibrometry and finite element analysis to help us design the braces basically makes it so we don't need as many braces. Instead of taking a shotgun approach to it and saying, "Oh, just brace the living hell out of it as much as you can because you don't know what's going on." Instead, you're more surgically applying the braces where they need to be to stop the resonances from happening.
Yeah,
gotcha.
But the CRC is kind of a different thing altogether. That resonance that's happening from the top to the bottom, the only way you're going to get rid of that is to cut the cabinet in half or damp the cabinet so much that it doesn't make bass anymore. Right.
Mhm.
So this thing is beautiful in that it takes care of it without bothering anything else.
Understood. Okay.
Okay. So so anything else we'd want to cover? So we talked about the cabinet. We've talked about the Pinnacle tweeter. We talked about the turbine driver, the woofer, resonance control. We talked about the port. Anything else that you could think of?
We should
Mike?
just talk about certifications.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the what do you call it, certifications and compatibility. So why don't we talk a little bit about that? So go ahead, Mike.
So we have 2 certifications on these products. The first certification is Imax Enhanced. I think most of the Audioholics are familiar with Imax and Imax Enhanced. So we were one of the original companies that partnered with DTS Imax to get those certifications. And so we actually have a number of lines which are Imax certified. And this is, I believe, the 3rd line from Sound United to be certified. Second one is that we are high-res audio certified. For those that you don't know what that means, it means you get that little yellow badge and it says that your speakers will play up to 40 kilohertz, which I know you can't hear, but that's the requirement. So we meet those requirements. We have those certifications. In addition to that, obviously, we have done extensive testing with Atmos. We've done extensive testing with DTS. And obviously, because IMAX and DTSX are partnered, you can trust that those things work well together. And then we've even, because our AV receivers support Aura 3D, we've actually done work on Aura 3D as well. So what we talked about with this series, again, we go back, we want to make sure we had a product line that would support a lot of different people's needs. And so whether it's 2-channel and you want high-res support, or you're a big home theater fan and you want IMAX or Aura 3D or DTSX or Atmos, we've got you covered with Reserve.
Okay.
So one interesting question on this whole topic of the certifications somebody's asking is, why IMAX over THX?
So Michael, they're asking, why IMAX over THX? So which one do you want to handle that, or do you want Scott to handle that?
I'll throw that to Scott.
So Scott, that's a good question. So
I'll throw that to Scott.
So the ball's in your court, Scott.
Nobody asked me to get THX certification.
Spoken like a true engineer.
It wasn't on the spec. It wasn't on the request form.
I wonder what the license agreement, like if it would just blow this product out of the budget by doing that.
As Michael said, we do have a closer relationship with the IMAX guys. Yeah, honestly, the THX just wasn't part of the program. Doesn't mean it can't be, but we've worked with them in the past. In fact, we had the first in-ceiling loudspeaker that passed the THX Ultra 2 spec.
Yeah, I don't think we have a THX certified.
Not anymore.
Yeah, not really in our lineup right now. Okay. Any other questions that you saw in here, Gene, that was of interest?
Let's see. Just a comment from James. Actually, he's going to be doing most of the reviews on these new speakers. He's just basically saying THX isn't a performance certification; it's a design requirement set to integrate in part in the entire THX system, and that's kind of what IMAX is doing anyway, right? So you have IMAX certified receivers, you have the IMAX certified speakers. You're trying to get a whole system to play consistently well together, so you know what the customers get to hear.
I'm not sure about THX anymore, but they used to be a performance spec, and IMAX certainly does have a performance spec.
So what speakers in this line are IMAX certified? It's not the whole series, right? It's just the towers?
So they're asking which speakers are IMAX certified, Mike. He says the entire lineup.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I thought I read the press release. It was just the towers.
No, Go ahead, Scott.
No, you can talk about it. He said so Gene thought it was just the towers, but it's the bookshelves as well as the center channel and everything else. Does that have to do more with just the ability, the output frequency response? What goes into? I'm just kind of curious about what goes into that certification. Scott, do you want to talk about that?
I guess we can. I'd rather have the Imax guys talk about it. But,
you don't have to go into too many details.
Yeah, I mean, there's a frequency response requirement. There's a maximum SPL requirement. There's an impedance requirement. Basically, what they're trying to do,
too.
Sensitivity. They're basically trying to make sure that the system's going to play at IMAX levels. Because IMAX, you go into a theater, it's all about the giant screen and the big, loud, powerful sound system, and they just want to make sure that you're meeting the criteria to make that happen in the home.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And that also kind of leads back to, we were talking earlier with Michael about the fact that there is no official DTSX certification, but the base of IMAX Enhanced is DTSX. It's almost the extreme version of DTSX. So if it can handle an IMAX certification, DTSX is just like bring it on, because it's almost like the most robust, over the top DTSX is going to be IMAX Enhanced.
Yeah, I mean, there's no Dolby spec either. The only spec there is for speakers for Dolby is for the height module. If you want to have it, the elevation module Dolby certified, that's otherwise they don't certify speakers per se.
Yeah.
So what's the sensitivity of two questions? What's the impedance, the nominal impedance of the speakers? Are they all 8 ohm or the towers 4 ohm? And what's the average sensitivity? Are you at least 87, 88 dB sensitive on your bookshelves, and in the 90s maybe on the towers?
What's your criteria? What's your how are they being measured?
IEC 300 hertz to 3 kilohertz.
Okay, we do typically 100 to 10K average.
Oh, wow.
That for our sensitivity, unless it's band limited in some way. And I don't know, they range from 86 up to 88, 89, depending on the model. And then for impedance, again, what's your criteria? What's your
again,
measurement
IEC?
method?
So if it's an 8 ohm speaker,
IEC.
Well, basically, IEC standard is if it's an 8 ohm rated speaker, it can't drop more than 80% of that rating. So 6.4 ohm would be your impedance minima, and 4 ohms would be 3.2.
Yes, I think it's the same. Can't deviate by more than 20%. So they're 4 ohm loudspeakers.
Okay,
Basically.
all of them, even the bookshelves.
Yep.
Gotcha. Here's a question about the iMax, since we're talking about that, from Teo. He's one of our reviewers. He's questioning about the iMax Enhanced. Does it change the bass management to 70 hertz in the AVR?
Well, I can actually answer that. Remember, there's the default iMax. There's a default crossover setting that the receiver has for iMax Enhanced. But one of the things that you can do with a Denon and Marantz receiver, depending on the output of your speakers, is you do have the capability of adjusting the low pass and high pass settings between your subs and your mains when you are playing iMax Enhanced content. Those menus are not visible on a Marantz or Denon receiver unless you're playing iMax Enhanced content.
That's so strange.
I know. Well, the thing is, they figured that you shouldn't be adjusting something that you're not playing. So they just basically give you extra menus. But the way you find those menus is you actually have to be playing a piece of iMax Enhanced, and then you can go in and you can make some different adjustments for crossovers if your speakers can handle it.
So does it default to no bass management at all on the receivers? If you don't go in and change it, will all speakers run full range in iMax?
Well, the way the iMax works, because we've done the whole session with these guys. Basically, there's a bass management. They do a little bit of setup changes to bass management, the crossover settings. They have a fixed thing that they believe that if you're playing the speakers, you'll get the impact of an iMax theater. So you have your DTSX piece of content. When it sees the flag, the receiver will change its parameters based on the recommendations from DTSX and IMAX, or Xperi and IMAX. You have the option of going in and overriding their recommendations, and changing the crossover settings. I mean, the crossover points and things like that. So it will say, okay, you set up your system for your Dolby Atmos and your DTSX. You use your Odyssey. You dial it any way you want. Okay. Once you do that, it says, okay, now since I know what your baseline is, I'm going to apply the curves and the other settings that IMAX recommends for that to give you the impact of an IMAX theater. And you have the option on our receivers of going in and changing that if you want to. But most people, if you leave it alone, the demos that we use, that we do at trade shows, we run the default demos and the default curves and everything else, and it's absolutely crazy good. So, but you can go in and make the adjustments if you want to.
So once you make the change the first time, does it retain that, or do you have to?
It retains that. It retains that. It says, okay, so this is how you want your DTSX to play back, and this is how you want your IMAX Enhanced to play back. So once it knows, it saves those settings.
Gotcha. So we got a question about subwoofers from no other than James Larson, who lives and breathes subwoofers. As you guys know, he heads up all of our CEA 2010 measurements and subwoofer reviews. When are you guys going to release some new subwoofers? You don't have any for the Legend line. What about the Reserve line? What's up with that?
They're asking about subs. So Michael, I'm going to throw you in the hot seat on that one. What about the subs? What about the subs?
Let's turn that over to Scott.
Poor Scott.
I'm ready, man. I got the designs.
Yeah,
You say the word, Michael.
I don't think it was on the request form. That's the issue.
They're like,
so there is no subwoofers with this line. So right now, Polk subwoofers are made up of entry-level sub, which is the PSW series, and we have the HTS series. And the HTS series, obviously, there's a 10 and a 12-inch. And the 12-inch actually pairs very nicely with these products along with the 10-inch. So if you're going to buy a Polk subwoofer, my recommendation would be the HTS 10 or HTS 12, depending on how big your room is and what your configuration is. It's one of the things that we're obviously thinking about, and I appreciate you pointing it out.
yeah, but like I said, a lot of the technologies that we talked about, there's a version of PowerPoint on it. And if you had a chance to come to our booth at the last time we had CES, seems like a decade ago.
Yeah, right.
We ran 4 HTS 12s with a Legend system, and it was absolutely ridiculously good. So you're looking at $2,000 or right around $2,000 for 4 12-inch subwoofers. And we all say multiple subs is better than one big one. And the performance is just like the Reserve speakers. It punches way above its weight class.
Nice.
Way.
So we have a question about center channels. How come you guys didn't offer a dedicated 3-way center channel, like a WTMW kind of speaker configuration for this series?
So that's a Scott question.
I wasn't allowed to.
Again, it wasn't on the platform.
I think what happened is it's got to be big, right? To do that, right? If you want to put the 4-inch and the tweeter on top of it,
Bigger
you
height,
get a larger, and it just didn't fit into this line. Maybe Michael has a better answer than that, but
yeah, you got a better answer than that, Michael?
You're gonna have to get the L400, man.
Yeah, and like I said, it would. And someone did brought up in the comments. We're trying to make it. As you add more drivers, you're definitely going to increase the cost. And I'm sure that was another factor that these gentlemen had to look at, because they were trying to come up with a package that fit a certain range for a certain customer.
Gotcha.
What were you gonna say, Michael?
So the other thing is, Scott, we're using the same tweeter. So you could actually, if you wanted a bigger center, go to the L400. Go buy the Legend L400.
Oh, that's a good point.
It's a bigger center channel. It uses the same tweeter. You will have timbre matching. So, at the end of the day, go big or go home. I mean, that's what Legend's there for, right? So,
Exactly.
My suggestion is buy a pair of L800s, put an L400 up front, and if you need some small satellites, maybe you consider Reserve.
And Walter beat you to the punch with that. He was like, just buy an L400. So he had already gotten there in the comments. Okay.
I was wondering, one thing I'm wondering from like a custom install standpoint, are you guys offering any flush mount equivalent products?
Yeah, so they're asking about for timbre matching. We know that. Are you asking anything? Are we offering anything flush mount, or you talking about like an in wall, Gene, or an on wall?
Right. In wall, on wall.
No, we don't have any. We don't have any architectural lines with this product.
But also timbre matching. Somebody brought that up in the comments. You can, because of the speakers, you can mix and match a little bit with the reserves and the legends. If
They are different, and Scott can speak to that obviously in much more detail. But they are using the same tweeter, so there will be a higher level of timbre matching than perhaps if you were to try to do that with, say, Signature Series or something else.
So what happens now if somebody has some LSIM series, your older generation products, maybe a pair of towers, and they need a center channel? You don't make that anymore. Would one of these center channels be a good match, or do you think there's too much of a difference now with how these are designed compared to the older series?
I think the L400 would be a great match for LSIMs.
So you can mix the you said like the L400. Yeah, I agree.
Gotcha.
Joe's like, what do you mean somebody? It's me. So okay, it's hilarious. Okay. So any other questions? Or actually, there's some very good questions in the comment page. You got a bunch of characters on your
Yeah,
feed
no
here.
doubt. Yeah, no doubt.
I'm looking at some of this stuff. It's pretty funny. Anything else you want to cover?
Yeah.
James?
Well, when are they available? When can people start buying these products?
So Michael, availability. When are they going to be available?
So availability. So we announced them today, right? So we announced them today, and the black is shipping first. So the black is available. So we made it available to our retailers today. So as soon as they can get up online or in store, that'll be available. Then the next, the color is coming will be the walnut, and then after that, the white. I believe the walnut's going to be available in May, and the white will be available in June.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up. I know we're going to talk.
Comment to make about.
What are you
Yeah,
going to say, Michael?
The only other thing about color is the white is not available in two of the models. So the large models.
Okay, so the white is
Right.
only available in the they said the large model is not
Oh,
available.
they're only available in black and brown.
Okay.
So a quick tech question for Scott. Somebody's asking, since they're 4-ohm speakers.
So the white is only available in, I'm sorry, the white is available in all the models except for the large. The large are only available in black and brown.
Okay,
I
so the
misspoke.
large center and the large.
The large floor stander, they are only available in black and brown, not white.
Okay.
So a question here on the impedance, do they drop, did any of the speakers drop below 3 ohms? Is it a consideration if you're getting a tower and matching it with a Atmos AV receiver that can't handle 4-ohm speakers too well?
They're all going to handle 4-ohm speakers. This is one of my pet peeves is, everybody's making 4-ohm speakers. I don't know where these people think they're finding 8-ohm speakers. I do a lot of competitive assessment.
I know.
I've done the research. People are smoking pot if they think they're finding 8-ohm loudspeakers out in the market today. Maybe 6 ohms on some of them, but you're giving up sensitivity usually to get that.
No,
so
you're
they're
right.
4-ohm loudspeakers, and I don't know, the minimums on these rarely get below 3.6.
Mhm.
So they're going to work fine with your receivers.
Yeah.
They're going to take more power if you can give it to them, but we listen to them with regular receivers, just like a customer would listen to them, and they don't have any trouble with them. Are they going to play as good as on a 300 receiver as they do on a 2000? No, but they're going to play.
Yeah, I'll tell you what they will play really good on. I just finished up my bench testing on the Denon PMA A110. That thing is a current hog, man. That thing could double down. I mean, I tested it down into 2-ohm loads. I know people are saying, "Oh, it's only 80 watts a channel." Wait till they see my bench test results. Very impressive. Beautifully crafted too, if I may say. I love how that thing looks.
Yeah.
So, link coming soon. I don't know what that means. Okay.
Okay.
I think we're wrapped up here. Appreciate you guys coming out here to give us some knowledge on the new Polk Reserve series.
There
We
go.
got to
That's
get some.
match
We
with
got to
the
get some into
R700.
James Larson's hands real soon, so you can start doing some reviews.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Michael, do you want to say anything before we let you go? Because he's on delay, so he's probably just hearing you now, Gene.
Right.
Guess not. Okay, so
He's
so Gene,
speechless.
he's speechless. no way, that's not possible. But thank you guys for inviting us. And we love coming and hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, definitely. So last question people are asking, have you set these up? What receivers do you recommend from your line that go with these? Would it be like a Marantz SR 6015 or a Denon 4700? What do you think is a good match for a whole system?
So Mike has a lot of opinions on combinations. So Mike, what kind of combinations like for an AVR and maybe for hi-fi?
Good ones.
So starting, I said good ones.
Good ones.
All of ours are good. You know,
Just use the good ones.
yeah. Like I said, I've done something like I've tried like a PMA 1600 on the big R700, which would be great. An 8015. I mean a 7. I mean our stuff has, you know, it's going to work pretty well.
So like if you're trying to do a simple home theater, you want to just do a 2.1 with a pair of books, I would recommend something like either the Denon DRA 800, which is a 2-channel AV receiver, or the Marantz sister product, which is the NR 1200. Those will work really, really nicely, even with the small floor stander. If you obviously want to step up, I always recommend, if I'm recommending an AV receiver, like I'm a Denon guy, so I would always recommend a 3000 series or higher, even if you don't have 9 channels or 11 channels, just because you're going to get additional power, or you can use it for a second zone. In terms of amplifiers, from a Denon lineup, I would definitely look at pretty much, you know, in the US, you have access to the PMA 1600, and you also have access to the Denon anniversary model. I worked actually on that model, so I'm glad to hear, Gene, that you like that model. I'm a huge fan of that model. I actually have 2 of those at home that I use.
Nice.
I got one, and then I never get it back.
So I'm very happy that you like that, because that was one of the last Denon products I worked on. But I would definitely, from a 2-channel standpoint, the PMA 1600, the Denon A110. On the Marantz side of things, you have a lot of options. I think that Polk really does well with Denon amplifiers, because, you know, Denon amplifiers tend to be very aggressive and very fast. The Marantz ones tend to be a little bit warmer. I would definitely stay with the higher end Marantz. I think if you go in the low end Marantz, it might get a little bit too squishy and too warm. So I would definitely look at things like, you have the old school KI Ruby, you have obviously the higher end PM10s, you have the 8000 series, which is really good. You also have the Model 30, which is the new Marantz product that was just launched. So I think all those products work really well from a 2-channel amplifier standpoint. If you want to buy something like a mini system, so you want a old school kind of like center console with a CD player, you know, the Melody works really nicely with these bookshelves, and then the Denon equivalent to that would be the PMA 150, I believe, is the model number for those. And those things are going to pair very nicely with, and this gives you kind of the sense of breadth that we test with and that we listen to make sure that the speakers not only work with these things, but they sound good with them as well.
Right. Now, your R700s, are they bi-ampable, or is it single wire connection only?
He was asking, is the R700s, do you have bi-wire connections on the back?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And I think that's it. See anything else in here that's of interest? Oh.
Uh-oh, we lost the host.
I think we just lost Gene.
He quit. So anyway, welcome, Audioholics.
I don't know. Yeah. I think it might just be us now.
There he is.
There we go. He's back.
I don't know if it's a StreamYard thing or a Spectrum thing, but every now and then when I'm streaming, this happens. I lost my sound. I'm back.
Maybe it's because
Yeah, we were like, hey, he's gone. It's like, hey, you know, turning into the sound audio.
Did we answer the question? Are the 700s bi-ampable, bi-wireable?
Yes, they are by wire.
Yeah, 2 sets of binding
They have the dual binding posts. It's the only model.
dual binding posts.
Only one. Okay.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right, guys, I think we are wrapped up. Don't forget about our Patreon channel at patreon.com/audioholics. We offer a lot more detailed information on our Patreon that we don't always share here, especially if you want to see the full bench test results of the A110 that I was talking about weeks in advance before it goes live. Appreciate the guys from Polk coming out here. It was awesome. Had a great time with you guys. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Hit that bell notification so you don't miss these live streams. We're doing tons of live streams. This is like the 4th live stream we've done in about a week. So we are really upping the content here, and it's because we are getting such great support on our Patreon, and our channel's growing, and I really appreciate all these experts, subject matter experts, coming here to add their perspectives to make this channel truly the Audioholics channel.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gene.
All right.
All right,
Good seeing
guys.
You guys. Take care.
All right, take it easy. And
Bye.
until next time, keep listening.